Hey there folks, it's Scott once again and welcome to another review, this time of the 2009 comedy drama coming of age film, Adventureland. The film's directed by Greg Mottola, the guy that did Superbad, which I do have on DVD. He also directed a film called Paul, and then he directed a movie, I forget what it was called. It had Zach Galifianakis, Isla Fisher, John Hamm, and Gal Gadot were in there. And it's some kind of, and Gal Gadot and John Hamm's characters are like secret agents or something like that. Or pretending to be a couple, posing as secret, but they really are, like secret agents. I don't remember the name of it, but from what I saw of that film, it looked okay. But from what I read, that film didn't do well. So maybe someday down the road, I'll give that film a watch. But anyways, back on this film, the film was produced by Sidney Kimmel. I don't know if that person's related to Jimmy Kimmel. I assume maybe, but you never know. And the film was also produced by Ann Carney and Ted Hope. And the film stars Jesse Eisenberg as our main character, James, who's basically, after graduating college and wanting to go on this trip, unfortunately, his parents are falling on hard times, and without any kind of finances, he's forced to kind of find a job at Adventureland. And his character encounters M, who's, of course, Kristen Stewart. And then you also have, he kind of befriends another person there, named Joel, played by Martin Starr. You also have Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig. You have Margarita Levieva as one of the other park employees. And then, of course, you have Ryan Reynolds as Kano, who is basically the maintenance guy who has a knack for being, kind of a ladies' man, even though he's married, and engages in certain affairs with the employees, including our other main character, M, or supporting character technically. But anyways, I'll get going. Overall, I really like this film. I think the advertising of this film kind of made it seem like it was your run-of-the-mill comedy, and it's a little bit more than that. It has, it manages to capture the 1980s setting pretty well. There's a lot more character development. There's drama involved, but it also captures the time period very well because of how they were able to, get the theme park in there. It's not really the actual Adventureland, because the one in Pittsburgh, because it apparently takes place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but the one they had to go to a theme park that has never been updated or remodeled and whatnot, because the actual Adventureland was actually remodeled. It looked nothing like the one that the film was actually based on. Apparently, Greg Mottola is the one that actually used to work at there. It was probably his worst summer experience in a sense of probably the shitty pay and whatnot, but it was a kind of a transformative experience, because it was a different time. You get to meet some cool people, and it kind of shows that. But I'll get to the main plot. Basically, we have this character named James, who's Jesse Eisenberg's character. He has graduated from this particular college. I can't remember where now. And he's trying to go to West Columbia, apparently. But unfortunately, his parents have fallen on hard times. And this is where you have Wendy Malick, who's also another notable actress that I forgot to mention. She was on a show called Dream On, she plays James' mother. And I forget what the other actor's name that plays James's father. Unfortunately, I can't use the internet right now, so it's a bit of a long story. But anyway, they've fallen on hard times. His father has been transferred to a different department, and they make considerably less money now. And this forces James to kind of move in with him and try to find a summer job. And he's tried, several times, like he's trying to get a job at the restaurant. And unfortunately, despite, an impressive resume of doing stuff at college, it doesn't translate to manual labor. Like he even tries to call like a asphalt trucking company. Can't even get a job there. And apparently the only job he can get was apparently with a childhood friend of his that he doesn't really interact with much, and that's the character Frigo. I forget. Oh yeah, his name is Matt Bush. Somehow his name came back to me. But anyways, that's the only job that James can only unfortunately get. And Frigo always makes this prank on him, like he does the ball taps, like he just punched people in the groin or something. Like whenever James was mowing the lawn, I don't know if it was at his place, Frigo just comes up to him and just punches him in the groin. And despite all that, James is eventually hired at Adventureland. He originally tries to audition for the rides, because that's what he wants, but unfortunately he filled out the application for games, and of course the managers, played by Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig, they think that he's more of a games person. And he's also told that he cannot get rid of a giant ass panda because unfortunately they don't have too many of them, and plus the game you're supposed to drop like a bottle cap, like a rain at the bottles, and it's really impossible to do so unless if you cheat, which apparently this one customer does along with his kid, because he actually puts his kid over the game, and eventually he does. Well, of course he wins, but James notices this because apparently the guy was talking to him was trying to distract him, and so that parent can get his kid, his giant ass panda, and he's almost really determined, and he actually almost looks like he's going to threaten him. He's like, just give the kid a fucking panda. And then apparently our other supporting character, M, played by Kristen Stewart, who actually I think did a very good job in this role, notices this and actually gives the guy his giant panda. And eventually James gets to know M, and yeah, they eventually become friends. They start, you see, after work, they start to socially interact with each other. And earlier, before the panda thing, he also interacts with Joel, who has worked there for quite some time. He basically describes the game of the game of the hats on top of that's glued on the mannequins, and apparently you're supposed to throw a ball at that and try and knock it off, but you can't do that because it's rigged for the hats to stay on there, so they can't win. So it's usually impossible to win. And unfortunately, if they do somehow knock it off, or if they do get a prize, like the giant ass panda, he says you should just go home because you just lost your job apparently. But anyways, back to the subject of James and M. The movie starts to get into the social introduction of James and M, and they develop this kind of natural chemistry and friendship. Like M is a daughter of some rich parents. Unfortunately, her real mother, her birth mother, died of cancer or something, and then apparently the stepmother is no better, and in fact worse. They don't get along, and she's kind of estranged from her father because he married a little quicker than he should have. So anyway, we see that James and M bond over certain issues in life, him trying to go to college. Unfortunately, James' weakness is unfortunately he's a virgin, and no woman wants to hear that apparently. While this is going on, Ryan Reynolds' character, Kano, who's, of course, married, but that doesn't stop him from engaging in affairs. He actually kind of has an affair with M after the party ends. And speaking of the party, before I get into more detail, the party scene's kind of cool. You see how much of James and M interacting with each other, having this unique chemistry. They're bonding and having similar interests in music, and the pot that James brings and whatnot. And eventually M wants more because eventually she can make pot cookies out of it or something. And we also see that they start to hang out more, and James makes the first move and actually kisses her, and despite the fact that she has sort of an affair with Kano, she kind of takes a liking to him, but at some point she wants to take things a little slow. During one point, whenever it's her, James, and Joel and this one employee that kind of hang out, because it's Tuesdays and they get drunk, and one of the employees makes out with Joe, but of course Susie, I think that's the character's name, later rejects him the next day, and him's kind of surprised, and I guess because Susie told Joe that they're Catholic and they can't get involved, M knows that's bullshit and actually stands up for Joe and calls her out on her bullshit and actually ends their friendship, which is kind of unexpected but very cool at the same time. But anyways, while James and M are taking a bit of a break, apparently this one employee named Lisa P, apparently played by Margarita Levieva, comes back, and because of certain situations with her father, she gets to know James a little bit too, and apparently they even go out on a date. And Frigo, being the person he was, doesn't buy it, and Frigo is a bit of an annoying character to some degree, even though you can't help but laugh at the ball taps that he performs. Like, whenever he thinks that whole date is bullshit, he actually tells them where they were going. He shows up to where James and Lisa P are at, and he's like, "What's it worth to you?" And he pays him, and he still gets the ball tap on him. So yeah. And earlier, when James was at M's party, and him and M were in the pool together, kind of talking and whatnot, and when M leaves, James is too embarrassed to get out because it turns out he has a boner, and then Frigo says, "You got a boner, man!" And James is really embarrassed and jumps back in there. So yeah. But anyways, yeah, so they go on this date, her and Lisa P. She's beautiful looking, but you can tell she's kind of a ditz. Like whenever she hears about the rumors about, or hears about James losing a giant ass panda, he said something along the lines like, "My legend precedes me," and then Lisa's like, "What?" And of course, you know she's kind of a ditz, and James says, "It's nice meeting you." So, but anyways, despite their nice little date, she actually shares weed with him and whatnot, and they smoke weed, and she's all flashy and whatnot, and they hit her and James make out and whatnot. But eventually, M feeling a little, feeling like she was responsible, she eventually actually called James after they when they were out on their date. Eventually, James decides to make up with them and decides that that's the person that he wants to be with, especially during this one scene whenever one of the contestants are trying to knock the hat off with the ball, and they realize it's been glued on apparently, and to be honest, Joe was high because earlier run out the park, M and James and Joe actually eat all these pot cookies, and because they're so stoned and out of their minds, eventually Joe gets knocked out by one of the contestants, and M's like kind of pissed, and when I say you shouldn't do shit like that, and apparently the contestant gets a little rough with her, and James actually defends her and actually punches him in the groin and whatnot, and apparently then one of the guy's friends chase him, and then eventually Bobby, I believe the manager of Adventureland, sorry, I thought I saw something, but anyways, Bobby actually grabs it back and actually defends James. He's like, "Just give me a reason, motherfucker! You don't know what I'm capable of!" Which I thought was pretty cool. It's actually pretty cool to see that one of the bosses actually stuck up for their employees. And this eventually kind of wins the affection of M because she thinks he's really the coolest guy ever, and kind of makes the relationship a little stronger. And not James, but I'll get to that. Joel eventually quits because of what happened earlier, and after him getting embarrassed and punched out. He actually is kind of disappointed with James because of the fact that he went out on a date with Lisa P when he has M, this wholesome, down-to-earth woman. And eventually this leads to James to tell him the truth about he went on a date with Lisa P, but he decides that because he wants to be forthcoming and honest with her and felt like it was necessary to tell her. And surprised by this, but I don't know what's the word to say. M's surprised but not shocked, and respects what James did, and she actually goes to decide to end the little fling between her and Connell. But somehow Frigo and one of the mentally handicapped employees claimed that he saw Connell and M doing push-ups with no clothes on and whatnot. And Frigo realizes it's basically them fucking and whatnot. So eventually James and Frigo decide to track him down, and M's at Connell's, or I guess at his mother's place, and she actually decides to end the affair. But unfortunately, when she comes out, James doesn't know about this and is really upset and actually breaks it off. And then, like the next day, James is hanging out with Lisa P, and eventually tells Lisa about the whole M and Connell affair, and then the next day, apparently, everyone knows about it, and feeling stressed out, M decides to quit for good, and then she decides to go to New York to pretty much start her life over, pretty much. And then James feeling down and realizing that Lisa P didn't keep it a secret like she said she would, eventually confronts her about it, and apparently up to no avail. Lisa just goes on with just plays after James called her out on her bullshit. She was like, "Whoa," and starts playing the adventure music, deciding that she doesn't want to talk to him anymore after that. And eventually James himself decides he's going to quit and actually go to New York to find him. And eventually they do reunite, and despite the fact there's a little bit of an awkward meeting up between them, James tells her that he basically sees he realizes what a good person she is, despite what's happened, the drama and whatnot, and that. But she fucked up, but he also saw some nice qualities, like she defended him at knife point. She saved him from being knifed over a giant panda, and her ability to make pot cookies and hold a conversation together and whatnot. And so eventually M's touched by this and invites him in, and it was raining pretty hard whenever he met her outside of the apartment where she lives. And eventually they patch things up and they start to actually James has sex for the first time with her. And that's pretty much it. So basically, like I said, I really enjoyed this film. I mean, there were some funny parts, but the trailer that they used was done very poorly. It's like they made it to be like your run-of-the-mill comedy. It's not. It's because they really capture the characters very well. It's really a character-driven film. It's basically James trying to, find his path and just have a life, even though he has a shitty job. You just see that he's trying to make the best of it. He actually meets a woman that or a girl. I guess they're basically, I don't know. They're probably in their 20s, maybe late teens. But it's about, finding out who you are and finding out where you belong and how you can connect with. Like, James definitely connected with them because of, certain things they have in common, like music, life, and just life happens and shit happens. But you learn to move on from it. And the acting by pretty much all the actors is good. I have no problem. I think Jesse Eisenberg, he definitely fits this role very well. He should do more character-driven films like this. And I actually liked him in another film that actually ends with the word land. It was Zombieland. That was more of a horror comedy, but it was still a fun movie. However, when he was cast as Lex Luthor, that role was just woefully miscast. He does not fit the bill as Lex Luthor. Maybe as a Jimmy Olsen type, but yeah, he definitely is better suited for for movies like this, comedy drama or just drama in general. I know that he portrayed Mark Zucker in The Social Network, which I've yet to fully watch. So yeah, but I'm sure he's good in that. But as Lex Luthor, no, he does not fit that role. But anyways, as in this role, the character of James, he does a good job playing this kind of naive but yet intelligent and just like trying to figure things out in his life and trying to better his life, even if he has to go through some ups and downs. But he does it very well, and it's relatable. Whenever you graduate at college, you expect to find you can either get a better job or hell, you can have a nice little mini vacation, which sometimes may not go that well because sometimes life happens. Your parents get transferred into a different department, which makes less money, and you're forced to pretty much fend for yourself. So yeah, and you also have M, despite having rich parents and whatnot, or really rich. Her dad's a lawyer and rich dad and whatnot. She feels disconnected with them and basically, just has a lot of shit in her life going on. But she meets one person that's actually pretty solid and honest, and and just that they connected on a kind of emotional and deep level. And there you go. I don't know what else to say about her, but just the chemistry between them works well. And what else? You also have a very highly intellectual guy in Joel who, reads books, kind of very introverted and, unfortunately still lives at home and is, feels like the world's kind of wasteful to some degree, and people don't acknowledge guys like him because they're uniquely intelligent and down to earth. And unfortunately, he's poor. And while, certain women might go for the yuppie-like types and whatnot, there's certainly some depth to Joel, and he's a very intelligent character. You also have the annoying character in Frigo, which I forgot to mention. Right before James goes to New York, he does get back at him because Frigo, threatens to jack off in his face, and he decides to say goodbye. But right before he shakes Frigo's hand, he actually ball taps Frigo right back. And Joel was actually with him when this happened. Joel laughed at that too. He laughs and congratulates James, and Frigo is like, "That was good, James." But anyways, yeah. What else? And Bill Hader and Kristen Wiig, they do a good job as both the managers of Adventureland. They're a bit naive, but they're pretty solid people. I mean, like I said, Bill Hader's character even defends James against a disgruntled visitor or whatever. But anyways, and I think overall they captured the setting of Adventureland very well. If that's what it looked like in the 1980s, they did a pretty good job. Because unfortunately, like I said before, the Adventureland that was probably in there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, looked far different than the one that was from '87. So they actually had to go to a theme park that was never remodeled and looked pretty much like it did in the '80s, and they just added some things. And then what I also read about this, apparently they filmed this in the winter, and so they had to use a whole bunch of extras to kind of cover up so the snow wouldn't be seen and whatnot, so it looked like it'd be still in late night and day and whatnot. So yeah, I really can't think of any flaws to this film. Maybe they should have explored as to why his parents lost their jobs. I don't know. There's some flaw. I can't remember what it was, but I don't know. I can't really think of anything. But anyways, I really like this film, and you just relate to the characters. It's a really character-driven piece, despite the fact that it's a comedy. It's not a full-blown comedy, like a raunchy type comedy. It's more of a, kind of in the moderate type that has funny parts, but it's not really a comedy. It's really a coming-of-age film where people, people go through life, shit happens, but eventually something good happens in a sense. They come out of it and they get to transfer into a different type of life. They they search for something better. And yeah. But yes, there's no downbeat endings. There's no dramatic stuff. It's just a very it's like I said, it's a coming of age film. It's just a very relatable film, and I like it. And I don't know if you'll ever get films like this anymore anytime soon. Probably will, but probably there's other coming of age films that I like Breaking Away, which is probably going to be 40 years old this year. And several others I can't think of off the top of my head, but that's one of them, and this is one of them. Yeah. I don't know what else to say because I really can't complain about this. All the actors do a fine job. They capture the setting of Adventureland very well, and the characters are well written. Maybe I wish they could have written Susie a little better. I wish that maybe... I don't know what to say what cons are about this film. There's not too many. It's hardly very little, in fact. But anyways, I don't mind this film at all. It's definitely worth owning on Blu-ray. I like it. Just that poor advertising made it seem like it was a raunchy comedy, which it wasn't. I think I also like the fact that they captured the 80s soundtrack as well. You have songs by The Replacements. You also have the particular song "Rock Me Amadeus" that plays around the theme park quite a bit. And you have Satellite of Love by Lou Reed, who supposedly Connell has once jammed with, and that's probably a liar. And, Ryan Reynolds does a good job of playing he's a bit of a romantic, but he's not, like Ryan Reynolds said in the documentary, he's kind of like the bad romantic, because he doesn't really know what affection really is, and he kind of just freely goes about cheating, even though he's married and whatnot. But like I said, all the actors do a fine job. There's not really any bad acting. Really like Bill Hader in this, and Kristen Wiig, from whenever you saw her, she does okay. But and Margarita Levieva does just fine as the Ditz Lisa. So yeah, I know I'm kind of going over the place, but I really don't have too many complaints about this film. I think if you haven't seen it, give it a watch. I think it's available to rent on YouTube, and if it's cheap on Blu-ray, like if it's $5, go ahead and buy it. I think it's worth it. So yeah. But I think J.C. Eisenberg should stick to films like these, not do comic roles unless if they're, like I said, Jimmy Olsen. That's what he would have been better suited for. And I wish he wouldn't come across as a dumbass saying the Comic-Con was like the fucking Holocaust, because that's a fucking stupid thing to say, so yeah. But anywho's, I think I'm going to wrap it up, and There might be another review of some kind. I don't know if I'm going to go that route. And then I'm going to do a bit of a channel update for personal reasons, so I'll get to that. Alrighty, I'll see you later, folks. Bye-bye.